Hello YouTube, welcome to part 3 of our Django playlist. Objective in this tutorial will be to understand settings file, settings.py, and to understand views and routes. And we will also create really simple HTML page and load it. So let's just go to, in this case, Atom. I don't know what you're doing, but I will stick with Atom for now. We need to add to left side our project, general Django project. So file, add project folder, and because in my case it's in the root of my drive, let's just click on it and select folder. So what these things in the left side means, to do generic, this is the folder where you will have overall settings for your all sub applications. For example, in settings file you will have base directory set. Why is this important? Because later when you set static files, meaning CSS and JavaScript and images, you will use that base directory to set your static folder here. We will learn about that too, okay, but we are just going briefly through all of it. Secret key, that's when you're deploying into real world, debug true, that means that you will see all errors, which is good, that means you can correct them. Allowed host, that's pretty much self-explanatory. And the most important things for us as beginners here is this section. Why? Because in this section you need to add your sub application that you have created. In this case, in our case, that is to do. So because this is classical Python list, we will just add inside of single quotes that application, which is to do, and put a comma after that, because assumption is that over time you will create many subsections of your website, many sub applications, and so on. So that's kind of the most important thing. So let's save, Control NS, our file. And what is also important here, URL spy. This file, let me just delete these comments. This file is extremely important for general routing. That means that the user hits with their browser your site specific route. This file will send them to specific functions that will generate specific results. Actually, this is kind of major switchboard that will lead to another local switchboards inside of subsections, inside of sub applications. So this is like a control table for some kind of website networking. So these routes will lead to local routes that will lead to functions that will lead to HTML files. Like we have layers of routing. Okay. Now, what else? DB SQLite3 means that you have established those, that you have done those migrations that we were talking about in last tutorial. And that means that your Django administrative panel is working fine, that you have set a super user, and that you can actually with SQLite3 emulate some weird, sorry, not weird, but real world database kind of work. Okay, like MySQL and so on. But this is kind of, you know, generic simple solution where you can practice out of the box. And manage.py is that file that you don't need to change, just don't change it, it can be dangerous. This file you will use to run other sub commands, you know, in a terminal, in a command prompt, Python manage.py do this, Python manage.py do that. Okay, so don't change this file. It is relatively similar to all Django applications that is used by most of the people, but don't change it. Okay, just leave it in place for now. What else? Inside of our sub application we have migrations folder. Basically, when you're defining your database in models like MySQL columns, tables, every time when you do some kind of change for reason that you know about, that need to be applied. So you will apply those changes through migrations, and those migrations will be reflected into migrations folder. So we'll see a list of them right here. Okay, the next thing is admin .py. This file is important when you are including part of your application that you have into Django administration panel. So remember, I think that you remember from last tutorials, in default Django administration you have just groups and users, but if you want to include something from either this one or another one sub-application into actual Django administration, you will state that here on a specific lines. For example, if you have posts, you will state that here. Okay, the next thing that is important is views.py. This is the file where you will define functions, and those functions will be activated by URLs or by routes. So when they are activated, they will pull things from database basically. If your website is dynamic, or if it's not, it will just render that hard-coded content. So let's just create, for simplicity reasons, index file, and inside of our sub application we will create template folder, templates, and inside of that folder we will create index.html, and for now, just for now, we will put some very simple content here, like generic content, something like that. It's really not important. So objective here is to use this file just to load our first HTML page to see do we have functions working fine, and also is our routing set as it needs to be. So this is just, you know, generic stuff, totally unimportant. Okay, after we are done that, we will go to views.py, and here we will create a specific function that will grab that index HTML. So Django functions are basically Python functions, and if you know Python, this will be really easy thing to understand. So let's define one function, and the name of function will be index. It can be something else, it is totally up to you. So that function needs to deal with something, and that will be request from that route. So just type here request, and after that we need inside the function to define what we are going to render to end user. And how to write that? We will return that rendered page. How to write that? Return render based on that request index page inside the quotes. Don't forget quotes, okay? Index.html, and after that we will use empty dictionary. Now, why do we need empty dictionary? So remember, the objective of web frameworks is to basically work with databases and to simplify your life as a programmer. So that means that you are working with dynamic stuff, with databases. So when you're pulling things out, you need that actual data, but you also need the name for that data to use it later in your programming, into your framework, into your scripts. So dictionaries are excellent for that, because they have a left side keys and right side values. So think about dictionaries as something that will, some virtual hand that will grab thing from databases and name it, like give it a handle so you can use it all over the place in your source code. Left side name for data, and right side actual data, so keys and values. So names for data, handle, and actual data. Okay, that's important to note. So this need to work. Okay, and let's save our file. Now what? When we have our function, we need to create a local switchboard, local routing, because we can have many applications, and Django doesn't know in front what kind of routing we need, how many functions we will have, and where those from where those functions will be activated, because one function can be activated from many routes for specific reasons, and you will learn that over time. Like when user hits couple of paths on your site, you will render them, for example, same for or for error page. So without too much theory, let's go to practice. So inside of your sub application, and not inside of your templates, okay, so inside of your sub application, we must create basically urls.py, and this is local routing, local switchboard for specific sub application. Now, what kind of content we need to put here? The easiest thing is go to your general folder, go to URLs, copy everything from here and paste it into URLs, your local routing switchboard. So we don't need admin because we already have it from general routing. So for simplicity reasons, I'm gonna delete it. You can also leave it. So yeah, I'm just going to comment it. So who cares? Now, see this? In this URLs file, we need to state from where we will call those functions. Now, this file here need to be imported right here. So how to do that? From dot, which basically means from local directory, import views. Views is the name of our file. Okay, now we can have this line here, but we can also delete it. It's totally up to you. Let's actually delete it. So right now we are creating what routing for what will happen when user lands on root of our website, on home page. So how to do that? Path, and this empty singles, that means that user is trying to access the root of our website, the home page, the index.html in HTML terminology, or kinda index PHP in PHP terminology. Now after that, what function will be activated when user hits that route, that path? And that will be views.index. Okay, this one views file, and in that file we have, let me show you, we have this function. So basically from this file to this file, it's kinda imaginary line that is connecting them, like virtual cables. So where I was, yeah, URLs. So views dot index, because this is the name of the function we created, and after that we will specify name for this whole route. Now why do we need name, like some kind of handle, which will be the same name as a name of function? Because later when you're creating complicated templates, it is much easier to work with these handles than all over the place to change the names of actual functions, because it's easier. So you will only state once into your templates index, and then if you need it, you can change those functions over time if you need it a little bit later in URLs file, local URLs file. So this is kinda, how to even explain it, I don't know. You will get that over time, like handles that is saving you time, like a virtual helping hand, something like that. Okay, now of course we can have many routes here defined. Now there is yet another thing that we need to do, and that is we need to include this local switchboard into general Django project switchboard. So this is local switchboard, and let's plug these cables into general switchboard. So how to do that? Just state here path and root of your website, and then include that local switchboard. And how to state that? To do, okay, is the name of our application dot URLs. Okay, that's what you need to do. So after that, put the comma, because you can have many sub applications, right? But there is yet another thing that need to be stated here, and that is that we will include including. And how to define that? See here, Django URLs. Remember that. And when you see the line Django.urls, and when you are creating sub applications, add here comma and say include. I need to go to sleep. I'm messing these keyboards, these typings. So I think that if I didn't create any error, this need to work basically, hopefully. Okay, so let's go to our website, kinda on internet or something, and let's create a refresh. And if everything is fine, I need to see here that generic index HTML. So let me see. Okay, so the server is working, and refresh, and there you go. So in the next tutorial, we will just briefly remind ourselves about this, like, you know, to refresh ourselves, and then I will figure something interesting out, like improving that index HTML page, and we will go and structure that page as it was in the first video when I was showing what I was doing. Yes, I'm just gonna shut up and render. Thank you for watching, for support and subscription, and see you next tutorial.